Hello everyone, this is Mutesh from Coding Ninjas. Welcome to a new video on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React.js, Node.js and Angular. In this video, we'll be looking at what are all of these things and how can we code in them. So in this video, I'll code a little bit in each of these components, HTML, CSS, JavaScript and JavaScript framework as well. So we'll code in that and we'll see which way of web development is better and what is the use case for each of these components. So let's now begin with HTML and what is HTML. So in the previous video, I have given you a brief introduction about web development. What is front end, what is back end. So HTML is a part of front end web development. HTML is generally used to show information on website. So whatever you see, text or information or images, so those all things are nothing but HTML. The buttons we see, the input we see, like wherever we type input, that thing also is HTML. Now to make that thing meaningful or to see all of these things very clearly, we use CSS. Or else if we don't use CSS, all of the things won't be aligned properly or won't be, let's say, as colorful. All of those things would be dull. That's why we use CSS. So generally CSS is used to beautify our website. And the last thing is JavaScript. So JavaScript is generally used to add functionality to our website. So whatever functions we see, let's say we click on a button and then some animation play. That is because of JavaScript. Or we click on an image and then that image just expands itself. That is because of JavaScript. So main functionality is being done by JavaScript. And JavaScript have some frameworks as well. So some of the frameworks of JavaScript are Node.js, React.js and Angular. Now let's talk about React.js and Angular. So React.js and Angular are front-end frameworks. They are generally used to design front-end of our website. And Node.js is used to develop back-end of our website. So that means that Node.js is a framework of JavaScript. That means that we can make back-end using JavaScript. Okay, now let's just dive deep into this topic and let's just start with HTML, CSS and JavaScript, how we can code in HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So in the previous video, we have installed VS Code. Now that you have installed VS Code and you must be at some folder. In the previous video, we have made a folder Coding Ninjas. Inside that, we have made index.html file. So in this video, we're going to continue with that only. So let's make our file index.js in VS Code. So in the previous video, we have installed VS Code and also we have made a folder of Coding Ninjas where we have written our Hello World program. So if you have not yet watched the previous videos, again go ahead and watch the previous video. There you can see that we have installed VS Code and we have written a small code of HTML. So that is quite simple, and if you are new to web development, you will see that writing web development code is very simple. So now let's create new files. So we are inside our VS Code interface. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a new file, and if you have already created new file which we had done in the previous video, so that's fine, you can use that only. So I have deleted that because in this video I'm going to start from the beginning. So I'm creating a new file and I'm going to name it index.html. Now the thing is, HTML is HTML, CSS, JavaScript or any other language. This all language follows a convention. So HTML convention says that let's say we have a lot of HTML files and all of those HTML files are linked to each other. So to distinguish between what is the main file inside all of those HTML files, what we do is we write index.html. So index.html is like a name convention for our main and important HTML file. So we have written index.html. Now we are ready to write some code in our index.html file. So let me explain you first thing about HTML is that everything we write inside HTML has been enclosed between tags. So every component of HTML is enclosed between tags. So those tags could look something like this. So I have written here HTML. So this is called an opening tag and this is called an closing tag. So you can look quite carefully what is the major difference between an opening tag and a closing tag. So this tag is called a HTML tag, and inside this we are going to write an HTML. So those HTML might consist of some more tags. So let's look at some more tags. So first tag would be head, and another tag will be body. So now let's slowly try to understand what what we mean by head and what we mean by body. So inside the HTML tag, we are going to write our HTML, right, or the main content of our website. So that also can be divided into few things like header, footer, body, and normal head. So as a scope of now, we are only using head tag and body tag. We're not making any header or anything because we will understand that later on in our videos. So first is our header tag. So inside this, we generally like our write our heading or some tags that won't be the part of So inside the head tag, we usually don't write code which we like to see on the website. So in this, we like few things like the title of our website or the link of the sheet that we are going to connect it with another style sheet. So I'm going to explain that further up. So currently let's work with body. So let's say I have written something in body. Let's say I have written coding ninjas in body. So this is it. Now if we try to run our HTML file, and if we just try to click on that, coding ninjas will appear on our web browser. So to run a HTML file, we don't require any compiler or any such thing. We just have to directly write this kind of code, and we can directly run that in our browser. So browser will take care for us about these things, and we don't have to compile it. So we can see that, let's go to the folder. So this is the folder, coding ninjas folder, where we have written our index.html file. So you can see that whatever browser you have. So let's say you have I have a web browser of Google Chrome. So it has a Google Chrome logo because this is an .html file. Now when I try to run this file, you can see it is showing me coding ninjas, right? This is our body tag. Now let's look inside our head tag as well. So when we look into this file, it's like name of this file is index.html, and let's say we just want to change that. So we will write here title. So this title can be written in head. So mainly the head is used for stuffs like this. So in title we can write my first page. Let's say my first page. So we can refresh it. You can see that the title has been changed to my first page rather than index.html. Let's also capitalize it as well. That's first page. So let's just make our website look a little beautiful and a little cleaner. Now inside the body tag, I'm going to introduce to you some more tags. So that tags will be initially of heading tags. So we have one tag called h1 tag. So this is a heading tag, and let's write coding ninjas here. And let's just try to refresh our main website. So you can see that the font has been now increased. So this is called an h1 tag. And yeah, so there are few more heading tags. Let us look into those as well. 6. So I have written all of the 6 tags. So this is like heading 1, this is heading 2, this is heading 3, heading 4, heading 5, and heading 6. So previously I have explained you that whatever we write inside that tag will belong to that. So whatever I have written inside this heading tag will belong to the heading 1, and whatever I have written inside the heading 6 tag will belong to heading 6. So we have saved this. Now let's go to our web page and let's try to refresh it. So you can see that these are different kinds of heading, and they are like going in a decreasing order of font size. So this is HTML, and let us get introduced to few more tags. So another tag could be a paragraph tag. So paragraph tag is just P. So inside this we can write a paragraph. So we are going to write a paragraph called lorem. So what is lorem? So if you're working on VS Code with me, so VS Code has a functionality called emit, which has been enabled in VS Code. We don't have to do anything to enable that. So to have a look inside that, let's write lorem here. And lorem 100. We have written lorem 100, and as soon as we click enter, so you can see that it is showing emit, right? Emit has been written here, and as soon as we press enter here, you can see that kind of a paragraph has been written by default. So this is kind of a dummy paragraph or dummy words, dummy sentence. So this paragraph is of 100 characters. Now let's go to our website and see it. So you can see that this is a paragraph of 100 characters or 100 words. I guess this is of 100 words. Yeah, not of 100 characters. This is of 100 words. With 30 here. Yeah. So I have formatted the document a little bit so that instead of one line, I have written this paragraph in paragraphs only. So it doesn't matter now. Let's refresh this. So let's talk about one thing now. Let's just add another paragraph firstly. So I have copy pasted that paragraph. So while I'm working, let me introduce you to some shortcuts of VS Code. So let's say what I did here was I have like selected this paragraph and I have copied this paragraph down. So how can we do that? Let's just select this paragraph. Let's press on Shift plus Alt and then press the down button. So I have pressed Shift, Alt and down button to copy this paragraph. So you can see that now we have 3 paragraphs, and we can go and refresh here. We can see that there are 3 paragraphs. So this is like kind of a shortcut, and like this will be really helpful to you whenever you're working on VS Code. So I'll introduce few more shortcuts here and there. So let's go to our first paragraph, and let's say that after returning this line, I want to like put a space in between both of these lines, right? I want that there should be a line break in between these 2 lines. So if we directly try to press enter, and if we go on our website and we try to refresh, we can see that there is not changed anything. So the website has not changed, or the appearance has not changed, or the content has not changed. So this is because HTML does not understand this kind of entire language, right? HTML requires a tag to know that we want a line break in our paragraph or in our HTML. So we can write our line break, and before introducing line break, now what we have seen is we have seen tags. So these are tags which are opening and which are closing as well. So there is another type of tag which is called self-closing tag. So another type of tag which is called self-closing tag. So that is line break. So line break is a good example of self-closing tag. So let's write that. So this is like the syntax of a self-closing tag. So if you look carefully, I have just written BR for break line, and instead of putting the slash ahead of BR, I have written it on the right hand side of BR. And now let's just try to refresh this page. You can see that there is a line break now. And if we try to select words as well, you can see that there is a line break now. Let me increase the font here as well. Yeah, so there is a line break here. And so this is like the BR tag. There are more self-closing tags, and one of them is called HR. So this is HR tag. So what is the use of HR? So HR is going to create a horizontal line in our website. So you can see that there is a horizontal line in our website. So we have seen two self-closing tags. One is BR and one is HR. So these are self-closing tags, and now let's try to write some more HTML code. Now let's try to make a button. So button, so button. So this is our button, and I've like told you before. So before like doing anything, let's just go and refresh on our website. So you can see that there is a little button, but it does not have any content. And I've told you previously that whatever the HTML tag is, and if we want to add some content to that tag, we have to write in between the starting and closing of that HTML tag. Let's say that I want to say that it is a button. It is a button. So if I refresh now, so this button says that it is a button. So instead of that, let's just write click me. More simply, let's just write click me, and now let's refresh our website. You can see that there's a click me button here. Okay, alright, now that we have introduced our button, let's just try to introduce one more thing. So we are talking about HTML here. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. What does that mean? What is a hypertext markup language means? So main feature of HTML is to connect between different websites or different web pages. So let us see how we can do that. So for that, a good example is a tag. So before writing a tag, let's add some BRs. So you can see that now I have like copy pasted this BR tags using the shortcut that I have previously told you. So I have put some line breaks, and let's say I have written an a tag. So a tag also consists of href. So what is going to happen is whatever link I am going to write inside this href, whenever we click on this a tag, we are going to redirect to that link. Alright, so let's look at that. Now let's say I have written here Coding Ninjas. And let's refresh. You can see that we can see Coding Ninjas here, but whenever we click on it, nothing really happens. Like we are not getting redirected to the Coding Ninjas website. So why is this happening? It is mainly because we have not mentioned the link to which we want to redirect us. So let's add the Coding Ninjas website link here. And let's just go to our website and refresh our page. So now when we click on this link, you can see that we are being redirected to Coding Ninjas website. And if we go back, if we try to refresh again, and if we try to do it again, so again we are getting redirected to Coding Ninjas website. So this is the beauty of HTML. We can redirect and we can like toggle between pages. Right, so now let us like look into one more tag, that is a list tag. So I am writing here OL. So OL stands for ordered list. So this is a ordered list. Ordered list. So inside OL we have to write more tags as well. So those are LI. So LI are nothing but list item. Alright, so let's say I've written here 1, I have again 2, and we have another list item 3. And now let's refresh our website. You can see that our list item are appearing now, 1, 2 and 3. So this is are in the form of list, and also they are indented a little bit. Indented means that there is some space in between the left hand corner and between the word or between the number 1. So this is it about HTML. Now let's just try to talk about CSS a little bit. So let's say I want to write CSS, I just want to style it. I just want to make this Coding Ninjas to be red. So we can do that by writing here inline CSS. So there are three kind of CSS mainly. One is inline CSS. One is inside the file we can write CSS in header, and another is writing CSS in some another file and then connecting that file to our HTML file. So we're going to look at writing inline CSS and connecting some other file to our HTML file. And the rest of the things we are going to look in the main CSS video or in the main web development video. So let's just write here, I want to give the heading ones some style. And I want to change the color of this to, let's say, red. Let's see the difference now after refreshing the web page. So you can see that after refreshing, this color has been changed now to red. Okay, so this is one kind of CSS, and to demonstrate you another kind of CSS, let's do one thing. Let's make another CSS file. So we're going to name it as style.css. So HTML files end with HTML, CSS file ends with CSS. And inside CSS, let's write some CSS. So let's say I want all of the paragraphs to be, I want to increase font of all of those paragraphs. Or let's say I just want to increase font of this h3 tag. So I can write here h3 and I can open this parenthesis, and inside this I can write font size. So font size to be of 50 pixel. So there are a few conventions of writing font size. Currently we will only work with pixels. There are other conventions as well, like RAM and M. So let's just work with pixel only. For this video, let's just work for pixel only. Let's just go to our website and refresh it. So you can see that this h3 tag, the font of the h3 tag has not been increased yet. So why is that? Because we have not make a connection between this index file and this style file. Also, the reason why we have named this file style.css is because of convention. So in CSS convention, the main styling file we name it as style.css. Alright, so now let's just try to link this file, this style file, to our index.html. So we have to make another tag, and that is of link tag. So let's just write a link tag, and let's just close this link tag as well, link tag. Inside this we are going to write few arguments like rel, which means that like what kind of file this link tag is referring to. So we are referring to a file of style, and also we are going to mention the href, like what is the location of that file. So location of the file is inside this folder only, and the name of that file is style.css. Alright, so we have made one mistake. This is not style, this is style sheet. So now let's go to our website and refresh. So we can see that I have increased, by mistake I have increased the font size a bit larger. So let's make it 50 pixel, and let's go to our website and refresh it. You can see that this has now the size of 50 pixel. Coding Ninjas, the h3 tag now has a size of 50 pixel. So we can play around with CSS some more. Like let's say that I want the whole body to have some other color. So I can write here body, and we can change the background color. So let's say we want a background color to be of brown, or let's say blurry wood, this blurry wood color. Now let's refresh our website. So you can see that the background has now been changed. So you can see that using CSS we are able to achieve so much things, like we are able to change font size, we are able to like change color of text, change color of background. We are also able to align text as well. So let's say I just want to align this text to center. Yeah, so this text has now been aligned to center. So like there is so much thing that we can do using CSS. There is another thing called Flexbox, like which is kind of an advanced topic, and we are going to cover that in our next video. So now let's try to add some more CSS, and Let me explain you what is an class and what is an ID inside CSS. So using CSS, let's say I just want to only like change the font of this paragraph. Okay, the first paragraph. Now if we go to a style sheet and if we write P and then if we try to change the font size, and let's change our font size to 40 rather than 40, let's write 50 pixel, and let's just see some changes. So you can see that all of these paragraphs, size of all of these paragraphs are now being changed. To deal with this kind of things, there is one thing that has been introduced in CSS, that is called class and ID. So let's say this paragraph has a class of para. Alright, para. Now when we go to style and let's say we write here dot para, and then we go and we refresh, we can see that only the paragraph which has a class of dot para has changed its font. Not all of the paragraphs font has been changed. So this is because, let me before explaining further, let me clear one thing, that dot represents for class and hashtag represents for ID. Okay, so you can see that here we have written class para. So that's why we are writing here dot, that means class, and para, that means that the name of that class. And using this we were able to toggle only a single para. There's another thing called ID. So we can write ID to anything. Let's just write ID to the button. So we can do that by writing ID, and inside this let's give it ID as button. Okay, so now let's just write some styling as well. So like it is not important to write some styling, but let's just write some styling as well to explain you this. So hashtag means ID and buttons means the name of that ID. So let's say I just want to, we can see that we have a button here, click me, and I want that this button should be very large, but the font size should remain changed, should be same. So what we can do is we can add padding. So let's say I have added padding of 5 pixels. Now if we go and we refresh on this page, you can see that now this button is a little bit thicker. So let's just write some more padding. So now it is more noticeable that this button is now looking more kind of beautiful. So it is because of CSS. We were able to achieve that. So we have learned about classes, we have learned about IDs, and before moving forward, before going to the more advanced topic of JavaScript, let me introduce you one more thing, or one more important tag which has been frequently used in the frameworks of JavaScript, which are React and Angular and other frameworks. So tag is called div. So div is nothing but let's consider it as a section. So div is just a section, and if you write anything in the div tag, that will appear as well. So we have refreshed it and we have written before heading. So this text is now appeared now. So this is just a div tag, and we can treat div tag as just a section. Right, so this div tag is going to come in React.js, so that's why I have introduced this div tag. This div tag. So the reason of this div tag is nothing like the functionality of this div tag is nothing. So if we try to cover all of this into a div tag and just save it and refresh our main website, you can see that nothing really changes, right? But div tag is generally used to differentiate between two sections. And there is also a VS Code shortcut to create a div tag with some class. So let's say I just want to create a div tag with a class name 1. So I can directly write dot 1 and then I can press enter. So you can see that we have created a div tag of class 1. There's another shortcut to create a div tag of some ID. So let's say I have put here hashtag, and let's say I have put here 2. And when I press enter, you can see that a div has been now created with an ID of 2, and let's name it as 2. So you can see here, like these two sections are now separated because of the div tag. Like they are not in a single line. So if we have written something like this, 1 and 2. Now if we refresh it, we can see that 1 and 2 are in single line. But these two things are being separated by the div tag. For now, let's comment or let's just delete this div tag. We are going to see that later on in React.js. And please try to remember the div tag. I'm going to talk about that in the next video. So now let's move forward with JavaScript. So now let's jump to JavaScript and how we can write JavaScript code. Let's just write some JavaScript code. So how can we write a JavaScript code? So to write JavaScript code, all we need is a web browser. That's it. Using a web browser, we can potentially write some JavaScript code. Let me explain you how. So let's say I can right click on any website. I can click on inspect. And here we can see a little console here, a console icon here. When we click on console, it is giving us this kind of interface. So we can write our JavaScript code here. Now the easiest code of JavaScript is, or the hello world of JavaScript is console.log when we press enter, it is printing or it is consoling to the log hello world. This is one way of writing JavaScript code. Another way of writing JavaScript code is through our files only. So in this, before ending our HTML tag, let's make a script tag and let's src it. So we are giving the source to our script tag. So we are going to now write JavaScript, right? That's why we are giving it a script tag. Let's now create a script file as well. So script.js and JavaScript extension is .js. Now we have to mention here that what is the file. So it is script.js. Now we can write JavaScript code in this file. So JavaScript code, so easiest JavaScript code is console.log hello world. So you can see that now whenever we refresh our page, it is consoling to log hello world, right? So this is the magic of JavaScript. What I like, you can see that it is so easy, and this is JavaScript is a programming language, and we don't have to kind of compile it as well. The browser will compile our JavaScript and convert it to our main code. Now I have said that JavaScript is a programming language. Now we have to learn some basics of JavaScript. So let me introduce you to some basics, and then let me just show you some amazing features of JavaScript as well. So basics could be that we can create variables here as well. So we can say that variable x equals to coding ninjas. So this is a variable and it is storing the value x, and to confirm it we can console this value. So let's now refresh it. So it is consoling log coding ninjas. Now what are the other values we can store in variable? We can store in variable values like numbers as well. So let's say I have a number 12210 and I'm storing it to variable y. Now let's console it as well. So when we refresh it, you can see that it has printed a number as well. So we have printed hello world, we have printed coding ninjas, we have stored coding ninjas in a variable x, we have stored 12210 in a variable y. We can also console this from here as well. So let's just copy this line and let's just paste it here. And when we hit enter, you can see that it has been printed again. This means that whoever knows the variable name can like directly use those variable names and can do anything from the console. So for this we have to like secure our data as well. So we'll learn that later on, but like this is the basic features of JavaScript. Now, before going forward, let's just look at some amazing features of JavaScript so that you can have an insight on JavaScript, like what is JavaScript capable of. You can have a little knowledge of what is JavaScript capable of. So for that, what we can do is, let's say in this we have been given, let's look at our button. Okay, so I have given this button an ID or as button, and I want that whenever I click this button, I want this para to get erased, and so I want a value of this para to get changed to some other value. Okay, so I want that to happen. So how can we do that? Let's say we can do that by we are creating a new variable named as button, and we are going to store in that button this button, like this HTML button. How we can do that? Let us see now. We can say that get element document dot get element by ID, right? So get element by ID, you can see that this element has an ID, and inside this let's write this ID, button. Right, now let's just try to console it. Console.log button. So now let's just try to refresh it. You can see that this button has now been consoled, and whenever we try to hover on this button, it is showing that it is this button, right? And we want to add some functionalities to this button, and we have selected this button in a JavaScript as well. So how can we add functionality? Before adding functionality, let's select that para as well. So let's name a variable para, and let's select that as well. Document dot get element by ID, and I guess its name was para only. So if you look at the first para, it has ID of para. Now let's just console the para to log as well. So we can do that by saying console.log para. And now let's refresh it. You can see that we have also selected this para. Now I want to connect it. Let's say I want to click on this button, and I want this para to change its value. Okay, so what we can do is we can add an event handler. What that event handler will do is it will see whenever we are clicking a button or not. So let's say I have added ptn dot add event listener. So this is an event listener. This is going to see that whenever we click on that button, it is going to alert us. So event listeners should look for click, right? Should look for click, and what it should do. So before going forward, let me explain you functions as well. So in JavaScript, there are functions as well. So let's say I can make a function by simply writing function and its name. Let's say I want function name as f and some value inside it. And let's say we are consoling.log function. Alright. So currently if we refresh it, nothing is going to console log. But let's say I call this function from here. Right. So let's say I can call this function from here, and whenever we refresh it, you can see that this function has been console.log. That means that this function has been called. Right. Now we are only talking about basics. Don't worry if you don't understand it. We'll try to figure it out in our later lectures. But let's say we are able to do this. And how many times we call functions? This is going to happen. This is going to print, right? How many times we call function. Alright, so we have seen this. Another way of writing function is we can also call this function here only. Alright, so we have written this function. Now let's say I have given this function to this event handler, that whenever we click, please call this function. So let's see what happens now. Let's refresh our page. Let's click on this. So you can see that how many times we click, I think you are not able to see it, but whenever we click it, it is going to console.log function. And if we click it again, you can see that function has been console.log 2 times. Right, this has been done due to this. So we are able to connect, we are able to add functionality to this button. Now let's just change the functionality a little bit. Let's say I want para dot, so let's say I want to change the text content of our paragraph here, this paragraph. So how we can do it? We can write para dot text content equals to para change, right? Equals to para change. Now if we refresh it and if we click on this button, you can see that this whole first paragraph has been disappeared. If we do this and then if we try to click on this button, you are able to see that in front of your eyes that this paragraph text content has been changed. So this is a functionality of JavaScript. Let me explain you functionality of React and Node.js and Angular as well. Now let's see Node.js functionality a little bit. So what I have currently did is I have installed Node.js. I'm like how to install Node.js we are going to see in later on in our videos. But currently I have installed Node.js and I'll explain you what are the use cases of Node.js. And to write Node.js is kind of similar like JavaScript with some more functionality added. So let's say I have written console.log hello. So this is it. This is the Node.js code. But to run Node.js, we necessarily don't we don't need browser. We can run in terminal as well. So to run Node.js, we have to write node file.js. So this is the name of our file.js. You can see that, and whenever we run our file, it is going to do whatever the functionalities we have done in our file. So you can see the file structure. I have a file.js here, right? Now let's say I want to create new text document using Node.js. So let's do that. This is done by FS. So to create a new file, we use an inbuilt feature of Node.js that is called fs. So I have written here require fs, and constant fs equals to require fs. So this fs has been called from the node contents. So we have what we are doing is we are importing all of the features of fs and we are storing it in a variable. So this can also be written as variable. So in JavaScript we have seen variables. So similarly we have constants as well. So we have called it and now we can use it to implement some features of Node.js. So one feature of fs is to create a new file, and that can be written as fs.writeFileSync. Inside that, first in this function we have two arguments. So first is create.txt and the second is the value that we want to be inside of our file. Let this thing speak for itself. So let us just directly run it. So let's see that I'm about to run this node file.js and there is no create. Let me change its name. There is no create.txt here now. When I will run it, you can see that new file create.txt has been formed and Coding Ninjas has been pre-written in this file. And you can see that I have already mentioned to write Coding Ninjas as well. And it has also console.log hello. Now let's say I want to add some more files, some more words or some more sentences to our create.txt. Append file sync. Alright. So we can do that by writing fs dot append file sync. Inside this, first we'll mention the file name. So it is create.txt, and then the value that we want to append. Let's say I want to append coding is awesome. I guess spelling is wrong, but yeah, that is fine. So we have appended this text to our create.txt, and you can see that this is running fine. So currently this is it from the Node.js side. Now I'll introduce you to React.js as well as Angular. To learn more about JS, please stay tuned to this series. In later on the videos, we are going to explain Node.js, React.js, Angular, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all in details. Now let's jump to the next thing, which is a framework of JavaScript. So it is going to do most of the things that JavaScript does, but in an easier way. Alright, so let's now talk about React.js, and then we'll talk about AngularJS. So now let's look into React.js and Angular. So first we'll look into how we can code in React.js and what are the advantages of React.js over normal JavaScript or CSS web development. So I have initially installed React.js in my system, and to do so I'll explain you how to install React.js and how to deep dive into React.js in the later on videos, in the coming videos. But currently I'll only explain you what are the advantages of React.js and some small functionalities of React.js and AngularJS as well. So whenever we install React.js, this is the first screen that appears to us after installing React.js. You can see that this is a rotating image and some text here given by React.js. So React.js is a component-based framework of JavaScript. That's why its name has React and JS, because it is a framework of JavaScript. Now let's look at the folder structure of React.js. So these are all the files that we will get after installing React.js, and you can see that this is like a folder structure of React.js. Some node modules has been installed, some public files has been installed, and some SRC files has been installed. So public and SRC files are the files that we are using in our website. Now if we look at app.js, so if we look clearly in app.js, we can see that we have written something here like learn React. And now if we compare that to our website, you can see that they have also written learn React, and when you click on that, they are going to open the React.js website. So what is this and what is happening here? So what happens in React.js is, what we do is we write all of our code in a JavaScript file only. We have to choose either between JavaScript or TypeScript. But TypeScript is currently beyond the scope of this video, so we'll talk about TypeScript in a later video. But let's talk about JavaScript. So all of the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, all of these three things are written in a JavaScript file only. So let's look at this file, and before looking at this file, before understanding it, let's just understand some more file structure. So the main file is always index.js. So index.js is the main file, and you can see that inside this we are importing something. We are importing React, we are importing React DOM, we are importing some CSS files. So we can either write a CSS file, CSS in the JavaScript file only, or we can import the CSS from some other file and then use it in our main JavaScript file. So like this is, we have imported some things, and this what we are doing in here is that we are importing the essential things that is required to run React. And what it is going to do is it is going to import it, and then we are going to use the functionality. And here also in like React.js also, whether we are writing in JavaScript, we are going to use the same tags or like similar tag like functions or tag like features to work in React. So you can see that they have used a tag here. Inside this they have used app tag, right? So what this means is they are using this whole app file and they are rendering it to the main file of our React.js file. So now let's have a look at this app file. So mainly the first thing that loads in is index.js file. And let's say this index.js file is also importing this app file. So we have to look at this app.js file. Now when we go on this app.js file, there are a lot of things. We have imported sub logo as well. So if we try to like remove this logo, remove this image, like this image is like storing that logo, or let's say using that logo. So now let's just remove this whole line. This is an image tag and this is also a self-closing tag. And we have talked about self-closing tag in HTML. So this is a self-closing tag and we have removed this. Also, like this logo is of no use now. So after doing this, if we try to refresh it, you can see that the logo is not visible now. Let's try to comment this app.css as well. So you can see that I have removed all of the CSS from our file. And like there is no color, no animations, and like nothing. So all of the CSS was stored in this app.css file. So we can look at this app.css file, and if we want, we can just delete all of these files for now. Let's delete app.css, let's delete apptest.css, index.css, and logo. Let's not remove index.css. And we have deleted so many files because initially they have given us those files just to like make us understand what are like the basic structure of React.js. So React.js is generally folder structured, is in a folder structured way. And there are many files which are inside this so there are many files which are inside this public folder as well. So those are also of no use to us. We can also delete them. So you can see that I have deleted all of those files and now the website is clear, right? And I have deleted the useless files. So currently we will only work on this app.js file. And in this also you can see that like now let me explain you the basic structure of this file. So what we have to do is React.js is a functional So in React.js, either we can make a function or we can make a class. So either React.js file can be a functional based component or we can have a class based component. In both of these ways, we have to return the function which is storing all of the essential values or the main essential information regarding the website, or we have to just export the class component. In our case, we are working with a function-based component. Inside this, we are writing some HTML file. Let's just understand this like we are writing some HTML file. And at the end, we are going to export this file. And we are going to export it to index.js. And index.js file is just going to render this file. So now that we have understood the main feature of this, the main folder structure or the main file structure of app.js, let's just try to write some code as well. So inside any file we have to make divs. So currently we have a div and we have also given it a class name app. So inside this, let's write a hello world. So after writing hello world, you can see that that has been consoled here in our website. So we can do a lot of amazing things as well in React.js. The thing is that let's say in our HTML CSS, when we were working with HTML CSS, let's say I want to repeat a paragraph. So you can see that in this website, when I wanted to repeat this paragraph, what we did was we just copy pasted this paragraph. But in React, the thing is that we can only make a component and call that component again and again. So how we can do that? Let's just try to understand that. So we can make a component and we can call that component or call that tag again and again to repeat the element. Another thing we can do is we can add many things like let's say I want to add a functionality. So in JavaScript we have seen that when I wanted to add a functionality of on-click event, or to do something when I click on the button. So for that we have to write a big code, and if we look here, like what I'm talking about is this on click. After this para has been changed. So before going forward, React.js is generally using JavaScript. So let us look into some more functionality of JavaScript. So there is another thing in JavaScript called inline function. Let us look into that and what is that and how it can be used. So now we are back to our JavaScript file. Inside, what I'm saying is inline function. So what does inline functions look like? So let's say I want to name my function as hello. So inline function will look something like this: console.log hello. So this is our inline function. So inline, this is either called an inline function or arrow function. So this is our inline function, and to call this function we just have to directly call hello and just pass no parenthesis. So this is our function name, and we have like made our function. So sometimes this might happen that we only need an instance of a function and we do not need the name. Then we can only create our function and pass our function like this in any argument. So like whatever I have told you, just remember that it will like kind of help you later on. But yeah, that would be definitely done, and you will I will explain you that later on. So let's say I have created a function and I have called this function as well. Now let's go to the browser and refresh our file. You can see that we are now able to see hello as well. And how many times we call this function, we would be able to see hello. Alright, so we have called this function 4 times, so we can see hello 4 times. Similarly, we can write this inline function in React.js as well. So let's go to React.js, and what I was saying is, let's write an on-click functionality here. And this on-click functionality requires an inline function or an instance of a function. So let's write an inline function here, and we want to console.log clicked. So this is like the syntax of this, and we have only called this, we have only sent a function as an argument to this on-click event. That means that we do not require any name for this function, and that's why we have done that. Now let's go to our React.js file, and let's try to refresh it, and we can see that there is nothing in the terminal. But let's try clicking on hello world. So you can see that when I click on hello world, clicked has been consoled in our console. So how many times we click here, click will be consoled there. So you can see that I have increased font as well. So I have clicked total number of 13 times on hello world, and if I try to click more times, more numbers will appear. So this is it about React.js. So I'll explain to you React.js in our further classes, but just to give you a brief on React.js and just to make you see how does React.js look, what is the folder structure of React.js, and what you will be learning further on in the series. That's why I have introduced React.js, and similarly I am now introducing AngularJS as well. So let us look at AngularJS. So we have installed AngularJS, and we have also run the AngularJS file. So after running AngularJS file, this kind of interface would be looking, we can look at the main file of AngularJS. In this we will be working on. So you can see that there is kind of a boilerplate that has been given to us, or kind of a reference website by AngularJS to us. So we can look at it, and we can have an idea how we will be creating our AngularJS website, or how we will be creating AngularJS components. So now let's look at the folder structure and what is the things that are being used in AngularJS. So till now we have talked about JavaScript. There is another thing called TypeScript. So in JavaScript, I have given you an example where, let's say, here we were printing 12210, and we have also printing Coding Ninjas. Both of these we have stored in a variable, right? So that means that we didn't have to name the type, what is the type of the variable, is it a string or is it a number? But in TypeScript we have to mention that as well. and Angular works on that only. Angular works on TypeScript only. So if you look on the files of AngularJS, we can see that every file has a dot extension of TypeScript or .ts. So this ts represents as TypeScript. So in Angular we have to work with TypeScript, and so in TypeScript basically we can write JavaScript, but sometimes it gives error if we are not writing TypeScript. That's why to learn Angular we have to learn TypeScript as well. So to learn TypeScript, first we have to learn JavaScript. So that's why we should be familiar with that as well. But to like understand the folder structure and understand the working of TypeScript, let's just look into it. So we can see like this project of our Angular website. So like this is the folder structure of Angular website. There are some so this file, this .angular file has been reserved. Also, like there are some files that has been reserved. So we will be working on this src file. Inside this, if you look carefully, like there is a app.component.html. So inside this, we can look at like there is pre-written CSS and pre-written HTML as well. If we try to scroll down a little bit, there is a pre-written HTML as well. So yeah, so this HTML has been so we are using this HTML and this has been shown here. So if we try to like change any component, let's say inside of this Angular I'm writing here coding, right? So you can see that so I guess it is refreshing itself. So yeah, so you can see that coding is now being shown here. Right, so like we have to write HTML in this file only, in app.component or component.html, and we have to write it somewhere else as well. So we'll talk about that when we will deep dive into AngularJS. Right, so this is it for this video, and by now also you have not watched the previous videos of the series. Please watch them. You can find the link of these videos in the description below. Alright, so thank you.